Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Hey, 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 goodbye. On today's episode of Let's Talk Drones, we are discussing the announcement from Skydio earlier today that they are leaving the consumer drone space. So, let's talk drones. What's up? It's Chris, the Drone Geek, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Drones. Let's Talk Drones is brought to you by The Droning Company, the #1 online resource for commercial remote pilots based in the United States. Make sure you check them out online at thedroningcompany.com and across all major social media platforms. So I don't mean for the intro to be too mean-spirited. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Skydio, and I haven't been for quite some time for both personal reasons as well as some objective reasons that I see problematic with the way that Skydio does business and the products that they produce. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at it at face value, it's always a bad thing for the drone industry, especially the consumer side of things, when somebody exits the consumer market or a company tanks. I'm looking at you, X Dynamics. But earlier today, Skydio did officially announce that they will be sunsetting their consumer technology, which means there won't be support for the likes of the Skydio 1 and the Skydio 2 and any consumer level products that you purchase from Skydio. And eventually, you won't be able to purchase any consumer products from Skydio or a third-party distributor. Look, I won't pretend I'm elated because I'm not. I am not devastated, and I'm also not surprised. I've been seeing this coming for quite some time just based upon some of the trends that Skydio has shown within the consumer market and within the drone industry as a whole. But like I said, it sucks that we're losing another viable option for drone technology in the consumer space. Was Skydio the best drone available? Absolutely not even by a long shot. In fact, Skydio has been dogged by having a reputation of being the littlest brother in the big three, and the big three being DJI, Autel, and then Skydio. And quite frankly, the number of drone pilots that use Skydio as their workhorse drone was minimal at best. There were a few really diehard Skydio loyalists. They were like, never Chinese companies, never DJI, never Autel. We're going with Skydio because it's American made, baby. And I get that sentiment, I understand. But when you look at the products, the Skydio 2, for instance, which is their latest consumer product, versus some of the more recent consumer products from DJI and Autel, it's clear why Skydio just wasn't having any success in the market. Battery life was less than all of its peers. Maximum range, again, less than all of its peers. And don't even get me started on the camera quality. The Skydio's camera wasn't terrible. I mean, it would get the job done. But when you compare it to the likes of the Mavic 2 Pro, the Autel Evo 2 version 1 or 2, it's very, very clear that Skydio was in over its head in the consumer market. And, you know, after the Skydio 2 came out and then DJI and Autel sort of upped the ante with their newest versions of consumer technology, you sort of were waiting with bated breath to see what Skydio was going to do. Were they going to upgrade that half-inch sensor to a 1-inch sensor and really provide a viable solution for photographers and videographers that were looking for a drone that had a higher level of autonomous operation? And that's a real thing that Skydio had on all of the other drone manufacturers. For the longest time, and still today, Skydio's system for autonomous flight is head and shoulders above everybody else's. There may be some exceptions to the rule, especially with the likes of the Air 3S coming out. It has some autonomous flight modes that are pretty impressive, but overall, Skydio has been king in autonomous drone operations for a very long time. It really just fell short in all of the other categories that were most important to consumer and prosumer level drone pilots. So you may be asking yourself at this point, okay, if this is such a bad thing that Skydio's exited the consumer market, then why did you start this video with a song and a dance? And admittedly, it was maybe one of my more ridiculous openings to a video, but the fact is there's a part of me deep down inside that is thinking, yeah, good. I hope that this is the first step in the wrong direction for you, and I hope Skydio's not around in the next few years. And that's a really intense set of feelings. When you average everything else out, I'm sort of indifferent about Skydio, other than one particular facet. You see, there's a saying that I'm not going to nail verbatim, but I'm going to echo the sentiment, and it essentially goes something like this. In a capitalistic market, if you can't compete, you can legislate. And that's what I see Skydio doing over the past few years. The writing's been made very clear on the wall that Skydio cannot compete with DJI and Autel from a technology standpoint. That includes their enterprise solution, the X2. You've seen drones such as the DJI Matrice 30T, the Autel Dragonfish, the Autel Max 4T come out, and these are drone platforms that are largely going to be responsible for pushing Skydio's X2 platform out of the race. So rather than try to innovate, rather than try to catch up to the likes of DJI and Autel, Skydio is going to take them out at the knees. If you've been paying attention for the past couple of years and you look into any of the regulatory discussions between the FAA, the United States government, and the industry as a whole, you'll notice that Skydio has a really nasty habit of putting some of their higher level executives in positions of influence in those conversations. Now, I'm not saying that this is happening for sure, but I am speculating as to what kind of influence they're having. We've had this Blue UAS initiative, which if you're not familiar with what Blue UAS is, it's basically either American-made or American-safe drone technology used in the United States. The idea being, if it's not American-made, it needs to be American-approved, it needs to be American-safe, which means basically no Chinese technology. Whether Blue UAS is viable in the long term, I don't know. Whether it's viable in the short term, I don't know. But the fact is, it's a theme that's beginning to rear its head in the UAS industry, for better or for worse. I don't know yet at this point. And Skydio seems to have an awful lot to do with that. And that begs the question, if Skydio is planning on pushing DJI and Autel out of the United States UAS market, why would they leave the consumer market? And it boils down to one of two things for me. The first possibility, in my opinion, is that they're leaving the consumer space to focus more solely on the enterprise space. Once DJI and Autel are out of the picture, all of a sudden they've got this huge pie that they've already got a leg up on just about everybody else in the industry they can sink their teeth into and basically monopolize it for the most part. And if we're being completely honest, in 5 years' time, the enterprise and commercial market is going to be where the real money is made in the UAV industry. Right now, it's the consumer market because everybody wants a drone. Everybody wants to buy a drone, but nobody has the money for the bigger drones. The second possibility isn't so much a separate idea from the first one as it is an expansion upon it. So essentially, if Skydio pushes DJI and Autel out of the consumer space by legislating them out, it doesn't matter if they're there or not, the consumer space completely collapses because the only drones that'll be left are older DJI and Autel technology that is not banned by the FCC, or FPV drones. And let's face it, the FPV drones are very hard to get into because the barrier of entry is much, much higher when it comes to a knowledge-based standpoint. Also technical skill too. I mean, it's a lot harder to fly a manually flown drone than it is a GPS drone that holds position. So they push their top two competitors out of both markets, the consumer and the enterprise market, and they completely clear the airspace for enterprise operations. So you've got Skydio, who now has this giant pie full of money that they're sinking their teeth into, and they've got very few concerns when it comes to competing with prosumer and consumer drones in the airspace. Not to mention the possibility that they could just re-enter the consumer space and take over from there. But again, when you consider the enterprise market has a lot more ROI opportunity than the consumer market does at this point, I don't see that happening. I think Skydio would be one of those companies that would just be happy with the airspace being clear so that they can do whatever they want from an enterprise and commercial operation standpoint. Again, this is all speculation. I don't have any insider information on this. I just know what I see, and I'm just taking notice to some trends that I've seen as well. So if you're excited about Skydio and what they've been doing in the industry, I would challenge you to take a second glance and to look at what the larger consequences would be for some of the things that they're doing. And there is one argument to be made, is if they withdraw from the consumer space, it basically makes the consumer and prosumer market, which you can't ignore because there's a lot of money in that, it makes it largely implausible to remove DJI and Autel from the US economy because it would collapse that industry. But I'm telling you, I don't subscribe to that idea. I don't think this is like Skydio pulling the good guy move and pulling out of the race to make it so that it'd be impossible to remove DJI and Autel from the market. I think that they just don't give a damn about consumers. I don't know, maybe I'm being harsh. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up icon. Helps me out a lot, helps get this video out into the algorithm so more viewers like yourself can see it. If you really like this video and you love drone content made by drones about about drones and for drone pilots, this is the channel for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and while you're at it, hit the bell icon too. It'll give you a notification every time I post a new video. Until next time, I'm Chris the Drone Geek, and I am out of here. See ya!
Yo, what you say? Steady screaming, YOLO, rockin' polo, we the fight. Everybody frontin' like they so straight.